Hello everyone, and welcome to 2023 for my first video after my list making over the weekend. I'm not a big list maker, but I do like making lists at the end of the year, if only to kind of relive some of the enjoyment that I had on the movies that I watched in 2022. 2023, I'm going to begin with three newer releases, two from Flicker Alley and El Vampiro Negro, which came out in November of 2022. I also have The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. I pre-ordered it, and Amazon says they're delivering it today on its release day. So I'll cover that later in the week. But first off, I want to do another Flicker Alley. This is from a release from March of 2022. This is the Whistle at Eaton Falls, and this is a 1951 film. And it was restored a couple of years ago by the Library of Congress. And let me tell you, this is an absolutely fabulous restoration. The film it wasn't lost, but it was unavailable for decades. And it premiered, the restoration premiered, I believe, on Turner Classic Movies a year or two ago before it came out on physical release. I've not been able to find it streaming anywhere, but oftentimes Flicker Alley releases will play on Canopy, the library movie supplement to the library system where you can rent the movie. And like I say, it's a great restoration, and from the opening shots, and indeed has a whistle. The whistle has some meaning to the town. It's sort of the unifying presence of it will blow at exact moments. People set their watch by the whistle, but it has to be moved because this is a small town in New England. A shoe manufacturing plant has closed down. They went out of business, but the whistle moves to another manufacturing in town, the other big manufacturer, plastics manufacturer, so it's installed on the roof of that town. And now in 1951, small town America, which is Eaton Falls, a fictionally named town, small town America was idealized in a way that these were decent folk that knew each other, they cared about each other, they look out for each other, as opposed to the big city, the anonymity of the big city. It opens with a narration, the movie opens with a narration saying that over half of the American population lived in a small town. Now this is 1951. I was curious as to what the percentage would be today, and it's hard to judge because it's just a statement made, but as far as towns in 2020 in America, the United States, of 25,000 people or less, it was only a little over 10% of the population. So you can see a gigantic population move from small towns to big cities and the suburbs immediately surrounding big cities. And the movie focuses on a labor management dispute, and this dispute is due to the fact that the cost of production at this plastics factory exceeded the price that they needed to sell their products to be competitive. So they were going to have to lay people off. Again, this is a small town. With the largest employer saying they're going to lay half the people off, or they might close down altogether, it would affect the whole economy of this small town. So, and labor management films in this time period, 1951, this is the time of the Blacklist, this was very controversial. It was not a subject that was dealt with much in movies. Of course, famously, it would be dealt with a couple of years later with On the Waterfront, and the reason being is that the the Blacklist was in place. The right-wing politicians in Congress, they had a dubious eye on any film. Even a film about a labor union might cause them fear, because many of them would view labor unions as part of the international communist conspiracy to topple American capitalism, and the capitalists who run these manufacturing plants, you don't want to cast doubt that these are not great patriotic Americans. So, and it was so controversial that when this was made by an independent production company for Columbia, and Columbia decided to delay it and to delay it and delay it, but eventually it did get released, and later on in 1951, it was made in 1950. I couldn't, in the supplements, I couldn't find any commentary saying that it did cause controversy, but it was a big flop. It did hardly any business. Now, this independent producer was Louis de Rochemont, who was a very important figure in movie making. But he made his mark in the 1930s because he was the popularizer and the pusher he made of films, newsreel films that became part of the experience of going to the movies, of showing. Obviously, there was no TV in the 1930s, so if you wanted to see what the world looked like and all these major events, who these people look like, you'd see it in the newsreels. So after the war, Louis de Rochemont goes into feature filmmaking, but he wanted to continue on with this authenticity. So everything is shot on a location, and which was the studios had made films already in the late 40s, going out into the city, into New York City, and location. Some of the films were totally location, both the exteriors and the interiors. And he wanted this movie to be an even-handed movie, so we get to see both sides of the subject matter. I mean, you had to almost certainly make it an even-handed movie. And he focuses in on this plastics company where layoffs are imminent, but the owner, who seems to be very concerned about his employees, but he tells the labor union, we're going to have to lay off or we won't have a business at all. He dies in a plane crash, and his widow decides to put the labor union, much to everybody's amazement, the labor union leader to run the plant. And this is a dilemma for this man, and he's sort of caught in a trap. What do I do? Now I have to see both sides. I come out of labor, but I have to see the management side. And it's directed, this movie is directed, Whistle at Eaton Falls is the last Hollywood film that Robert Siodmak made. He would now go back to Germany. He had made films in Germany before coming to Hollywood. He's known primarily as one of the great film noir directors, a master of the film noir form. But he made other kind of films that had that same kind of authenticity when he was in Germany. He had become disenchanted with Hollywood and with the studio system, the political environment. But he was really good. I mean, what film he made, he was really good at depicting people who are caught in a trap, as this new president of this company is. What do I do? The intensity of it is really ramped up, and it's definitely the best dramatic part of the film, is how this new president is going to find a way out of this dilemma. And in the cast, the labor union now president is played by Lloyd Bridges, a really good actor. He had been in movies since the 30s. He had been in some supporting roles where he was featured, and now he's getting starring opportunities. Good actor, not a movie star. He doesn't have the movie star charisma. And his son is supposedly in this movie. He has two sons who were in the movies, but his most famous son, Jeff Bridges, is supposedly, you see a baby early out in the film, and supposedly that is Jeff Bridges. And it wouldn't have been his first appearance. Now, he would have only been 1 year old. I'm the same age as Jeff Bridges. So when they filmed this in 1950, he would have indeed been a baby. I remember Lloyd Bridges from Sea Hunt, which was a 50s movie on television series, and you would often see Bo and Jeff running along the beach with their father in the opening and closing credits. Dorothy Gish, this is only one of I think 2 films she made in sound. She had been in the sound era. She had been a silent film star alongside her probably more famous sister Lillian. The first film for Ernest Borgnine. He actually made, this was released after his second appearance, so in IMDb I think it's listed the other way, but this was actually his debut in film. He's Ernest Borgnine right from the start. Arthur O'Connell had appeared in only small roles, a couple small roles before this, so he's just beginning. Murray Hamilton has a really significant role in this film. He's not prominently in the credits, but Murray Hamilton, you know, maybe most famous for playing Mr. Robinson in The Graduate. And then Anne Francis, very young. I mean, was she a teenager here? I don't know, but she's absolutely beautiful in this, as a daughter of one of the labor union leaders. The screenplay went through many hands. Louis de Rochemont did not care for professional screenwriters, so his wife worked on it, other non-professional screenwriters, but in the end he had to bring on Leo Roston, who was a Hollywood professional screenwriter, and evidently they were making some changes in the script on a daily basis, and the film kind of shows that, because we have sort of a fantasy, and the film sort of develops as a fantasy, and the two villains of the piece. There's one in the labor union, the rabble-rouser, and sort of an outside agitator, not as closely linked to the community. And then in the corporation, in the plastics corporation, one of the leading executives, he too is not to be trusted. He is the epitome of the greedy capitalist. And we get a booklet. Just a foldout really, and it is an excerpt from a book called "Keep 'Em in the East: Stanley Kazan, Kubrick, and the Post-War New York Film Renaissance." But it covers all the films, I guess, on the East Coast that were filmed on location. As I say, this was a significant trend in movie making at the time, and of course they have to have the smallest font possible, but I was able to read it, and it was really good. I looked up the book on see if it was in my library. Of course, none of these kind of film books ever make it to the library, and they're very expensive. It's like $40, like all the other film books. But might be one when I'm in the mood, I might actually pick that up. There's in the supplements there is a appreciation and reminisce by Louis de Rochemont's grandson, and then there's a commentary by Alan K. Rode, which is very good as well. So this is Whistle at Eaton Falls. I've got it at the 30% sale, so I think I only paid like $12. But this is Flickr Fusion, which are a little bit less expensive. They don't have as many supplements as the Flickr Alley. But look for it on streaming sometime. Maybe it'll hit streaming someday. But if you really want to see the great black and white restoration and a pretty good story as well, and what small town America looked like in 1950, this is a film you might want to check out. Okay, thanks a lot, everybody who listened. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.